group of fellas. Not only that, they took you in, they showed you how to do it. Harvey wouldn't even remember, but once he taught me how to take apart a carburetor. But that was besides the... I told you I wouldn't remember.
I tell you how to put it together? Take it apart?
It's the easy part.
I picked up the art of trains from Herb. I'm an avid collector of Lionel trains. I have one of the most magnificent collections in the country. Why? I never saw a train before I saw Herb's.
I got it from Sherman.
You got it. Well, I remember the shortwave radios in those days. That was one of the... But it's hard to understand how a person of between 9 and 13 could pick up so much. And we were all had sponge minds at the time. And it was wonderful. Now, I have to tell you what, and I'll tell you about myself in 1 minute. I have to tell you a story of 9/11 that nobody knows about. I had an office in the Empire State, I'm in the textile business. I had an office in the Empire State Building at 9/11, and I took the train in from Morristown. It passes the Hudson River, and I was able to see 9/11, I was able to see the World Trade Center burning, one building. Now, Penn Station is right near the Empire State Building. I got out of my train. I walked into my office. My office was on the 7th floor of the Empire State Building, and I heard a fire alarm. This was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't leave my office because you always hear fire alarms in the Empire State Building, and you're supposed to practice. Well, I heard the fire alarm, and I didn't leave. I heard another fire alarm. I heard a third fire alarm. By 9:45, I get a knock on my door. There's a security man, and he's saying, "You must evacuate the building." I said, "Why?" He says, "There's a problem." He said, "You're the only one in the Empire State Building that hasn't gotten out yet." I'm in the... So I pick up my laptop, because I knew they might not let me back. It took me 10 minutes, and he's furious. I finally get down to the bottom. Now, this is the part of the story that never made the paper. I get down to the lobby, and the Empire State Building has that Art Deco lobby, and there's a guard in uniform who's passed out with medical attention being taken care of. They had all sorts of medics and everything. This was the guard in the observation tower of the Empire State Building, and the second plane missed the Empire State Building by 20 feet. It had made a turn, come around, and this man saw the plane thinking he was dead. He passed out, and they brought him down, and they were still trying to revive him when the last person out of the building left.
Whoa.
But this is something that nobody knows. There could have been that plane going into the Empire State Building, because the theory was they would have been better off with the Empire State Building and one World Trade Center than two World Trade Center buildings. But this man was being taken care of by the paramedics because they couldn't revive him. That's what kind of shock he was in, just to give you an idea. And nobody ever heard that story except the people in the Empire State Building.
Wow.
Who would roll out?
They were... What? What?
Did he?
Oh yeah, he survived. They eventually got him, but he was just shocked. He thought the plane was going to absolutely... What 20? You know what 20 feet is with a large plane? What?
The size of
That's
the
right.
room.
That's what it missed him by. 20 feet.
Oh, God.
And they told me that. And as I said, then I walked out. Now, I walked out of the building, and the Empire State Building is on 5th Avenue. And if you look down 5th Avenue, you see the Trade Center. And I watched it slowly come down, like the sun sets. But you couldn't see it. I couldn't see the dust and everything because there were buildings in the way. But it was the most amazing thing. We're all outside the Empire State Building, and we're watching these buildings come down, and then they disappear. It's just like sunset going out.
It's a little different.
Well, I'm glad that Jay mentioned the Empire State Building, because I've told this story to all my friends, and normally I wouldn't have been able to tell it to you, but the theory was that they thought the second plane was supposed to go into the Empire State Building, not the World Trade Center.
Ooh.
Now, what have I done for the last few years? Well, after learning all these things about cars and trains and shortwave radios, my father sent me to North Carolina State. to study textile engineering. Of course, I had no direction. I was not going to be the doctor that my brother was going to be, and one of us had to be a doctor. So he was the doctor, and I became the engineer. I studied textiles at North Carolina State, and I went into the textile business at the height of the textile business. It was the best business in the United States, the garment business, the textile business. The textile business doesn't exist anymore. You're looking at a dinosaur. I'm the only one left in the textile business. The reason I'm the only one left is because when I got into the textile business, I was a salesman. And every time they found out that I graduated from textile engineering, the people in New York knew so little about the textile business, they made me head of research and development. Now, what do I know about research and the only thing I knew about research and development is I knew what a loom looked like. They were in the textile business, they didn't even know what a loom looked like. Only because my father forced me to go to textile school. So now I'm the head of research and development for a big firm, and it goes under. I get a job as a salesman, and sure enough, they find out I have a textile degree. They make me head of research and development again. To make a long story short, I was the head of research and development for 4 of the largest corporations in the nation before they went out of business. Now, you could have worked for Studebaker as a head of development. Hudson, it was the same package. It's the same thing in the text. They all went out of business. But the advantage that I had is, 20 years ago, I gave up with the big firms and I went with a little firm that I thought was going to go out of business. This little firm that was supposed to go out of business is now the biggest firm in the country. So while I was working with them, I started my own business. So I have an opportunity now to be head of development for a fairly large textile corporation, but I have my own business on the side. I know the textile business, and there is nobody else around that knows the textile business. So now I have to keep on working because people call me all the time. So I'm constantly getting calls, and now I'm in the process of importing fabric from China and doing specialized fabric for the few American companies that are still around. I was going to retire many years ago, but I've been forced to continue to work. And that's the only reason I'm working, is because of the constant calls that I get for my services. And it's only because I wanted to be a salesman and I couldn't be a salesman. And so now I sell my services on a consulting basis, and I do quite well because I take a piece of everything. It's not just a fee. So whatever I get involved in, if there's a business involved, I get a piece of it. And my wife is concerned that I'm not going to retire anymore. And whether I retire or not, I don't know. I think I'll probably work forever the way things are going. It's unless my health gets me, but I'm in a very unique position because here I wasn't as smart as the next guy, and all the guys who graduated college with the straight A's and everything, they went to work for DuPont and Celanese and all those. They're in Florida for the last 10 years because they didn't have the breaks that I had by being forced into doing other things constantly, with companies going under, getting another job and rising, and the company going under and rising. As I said, I was with 4 companies. They were the largest in the business. I rose almost to the top before they went under. Thank God I was never the president, so I can't take credit for them dying. Other than that, as I said, coming back here brings back the memories of when I started. And I remember seeing, when I see each person here, I remember where they live. I remember passing Al's house, Herb's house, going to Rockaway Parkway to see, and it just brings back the memories. And that's why I'm upset that some of the other people haven't come, like Morty Steiner and Todd Mera.
Yeah.
I mean,
I tried.
I know, it's not a question of, it's just a question of when you see them. As soon as I saw Harvey, I remembered all the card games we played in Todd Mera's basement.
Oh, those games.
That's why I came here. I didn't come here for anything. I just came here to reminisce so that I could bring back my childhood and remember what it was like, and information that I picked up when I was younger. Now, my best friend over here, I say for last, Paul. Now, I got to tell you a story about Paul.
I probably can't remember it.
Paul got into, he's going to remember it. Paul got into computers before I even knew what a computer was. And Paul said to me, this computer thing, he gets a job, presidential race.
That who's who in America?
Wait, I remember this is an interesting story. They hired this guy at 22 or 21 or 8, I don't know how old he was, so that the Walter Cronkite can announce the computer is predicting that so-and-so won. Am I right or wrong so far? Which race was this?
Who remembers?
Who ran for president?
It was Lou Harrison.
Who ran? Nixon? Was it Nixon?
I don't know. I probably had to lose
Okay,
anyway.
no, listen to this. Okay, this is an interesting story. This guy gets a contract from CBS. And I think looking in a Republican state, I thought it was ridiculous, but we did it.
I don't remember either.
So should we trust exit polls? That's the bottom line.
No, he didn't do it that way.
I don't
Or
remember.
prediction.
But it just goes to show you that all of these things that I gathered from this young group stayed with me all my life, and I constantly relate to it. Sure, when you were the one involved with shortwave radio, weren't you? Right. Ham radio. And I remember you getting involved with him. I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, but I'm sorry I'm taking so much time, but just the thought of having the ability to be with these guys over the years. And remember, it was only from 9 to 14 or so that we did this, and you're at a very vulnerable age. And everything sunk into me. So that as I went later in life, if a car broke down, I remember. If the ham radio had to be adjusted, I remembered. If a pole had to be evaluated, I remembered. If we had to play cards in heavy smoke, I remembered. As I said, I come back just so that I remember what I did when I was between 9 and 14. Very spongy years into my mind. Now, one thing we all have in common, I have to tell you this. I always tell the story. What's the difference between a Rockweiler and a German mother? Or a Jewish mother? A Rockweiler eventually lets go. We all had Jewish mothers, and they kept us straight. That's it. I better stop talking.
Sure. I might as well get up now because after Spencer got through with me. Anyhow, I only remember working on the contract, but I have no idea about Arizona, what you're talking about. And I also don't remember how I resolved the problem. But in any case, let's see, I started in computers probably in 1961. So that looks like about when the computer business started. And I was working at Piccadilly Arsenal, actually doing quality control engineering. I went for my degrees in operations research. So I went all the way through to the doctorate stuff, which I never wrote my thesis. So I quit before I ever did it. I remember my first job, I walked in and I took one look around and I realized that I was not set for work. I really wanted to retire. So I retired a couple of times already. And I've been retired. I've been retired now for Sasha. I've been retired now for the last 6 years. And we live in, my wife Lana and myself, and we have 4 kids. We live in a place called Ocean Pines, Maryland. That's probably almost as large as Hooterville, but we don't have a train. But actually Ocean Pines is right across the river from the bay, from Ocean City, Maryland, which really is an up-and-coming place. And Ocean Pines itself is growing in leaps and bounds now. So we've even got a restaurant now. But Ruth Crisp just opened up.
A restaurant.
Yeah, we have a few others, but they're not so great. But anyway, so we retired 6 years ago. We spend most of our time, my wife and myself, we play a lot of golf. We ride a jet ski. We have a boat. And lately we've been traveling a little bit. We have 4 kids. I mean, we were a dysfunctional family. Unfortunately, Lana came in and straightened out all their functions. But we have death, we have
What's special ed?
yeah, we have death, we have divorce, and we have adopted. So we covered everything. And the kids span from one end of the world to the other. One is now in Brooklyn, becoming an Orthodox Chabad rabbi. Another one is studying herbal medicine, and just got back from another learning course of how to surf in Costa Rica. I have another one who was in the Bush administration as head of financial policy for family services, actually. We just started a consulting company, so she's doing good. And the fourth one got a master's degree and went off to live in Israel. And on the plane over, she met a guy, and they got married, and now she's expecting a baby. So now we make the Israeli round twice a year, and we're to stop over in Europe, and then we come back, and we hang around Florida for 6 weeks in the winter. So Lana kept everybody together and really did a terrific job between on the kids and myself. And now we have 2 grandchildren and 1 coming.
Brandy and Kylie.
Yeah, Brandy and Kylie, and one is 3.5, and the other is 1.5 years. The 3.5-year-old already is using the word fine, fine, fine. Okay, so she's already 16, and she's got a couple of other gems that she does. When she does something really wrong, she just says, "Hey guys, let's have a group hug, and let's forget about it because tomorrow's another day. We'll start over."